The courtroom was silent, so silent that the faint hum of the ceiling fan sounded like thunder in the stillness. Rows of people sat stiff, eyes locked on the man standing before the judge. He wore a worn-out jacket with medals pinned to it, but his face held the calm strength of a man who had seen both life and death. His name was Ethan Cole, a retired Army medic, a single father, and a man who carried more scars inside than on his body. The judge, Amelia Hayes, adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. Her voice trembled only slightly when she said, "Mr. Cole, I appreciate your testimony. But I don't see how this is relevant to the custody case." Ethan's voice was deep and steady. "Your Honor, I didn't come here to talk about me. I came to talk about her, your daughter." The courtroom gasped. Amelia froze. Her composure cracked for the first time in years. "What did you just say?" she whispered. Ethan turned his eyes to the young girl sitting at the back of the courtroom, Lila Hayes, Amelia's 8-year-old daughter. She sat in a wheelchair, her legs wrapped in braces, her eyes wide but hopeful. "I can make your daughter walk again," Ethan said softly. The judge's hand trembled as she gripped the edge of her desk. Her daughter's paralysis had been the one thing she could not control, could not fix. Every doctor she had seen, every specialist, every surgeon, had told her the same thing: it's permanent. "Mr. Cole," she said slowly, her voice breaking, "if this is some kind of manipulation to sway my ruling." "It's not," Ethan interrupted. His tone wasn't defensive, it was certain. "I'm not asking for anything. I'm offering help." Amelia looked at him, torn between disbelief and the desperate hope she'd buried long ago. "You were a medic, not a miracle worker." Ethan nodded. "True. But I've worked with children like Lila before. War doesn't just take lives, it breaks bodies. I've seen men walk again after everyone said they never would. I've seen worse cases than hers find their way back. I know I can help." The silence stretched, fragile as glass. Amelia exhaled shakily and leaned back in her chair. "We'll continue this case tomorrow," she said quickly, her voice barely audible. Court adjourned. That evening, as rain drizzled against the courthouse steps, Ethan walked to his pickup truck. He was about to leave when he heard a voice behind him. "Mr. Cole." He turned. Judge Hayes, no longer in her robe, stood in the rain, her umbrella forgotten at her side. "Do you really believe you can help my daughter?" she asked. Ethan's eyes softened. "I don't believe, ma'am. I know." Amelia invited him to her home the next day, a large, elegant house that looked more like a fortress than a home. Lila was in the living room, sketching something on paper when Ethan entered. "Hi there," he said, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "I'm Ethan." The girl looked up shyly. "You're the soldier, right?" He smiled. "Used to be. Now I just fix people." She tilted her head, studying him. "Mom said my legs are broken forever." Ethan's gaze softened. Sometimes forever just means nobody tried hard enough. That was the moment Lila smiled, the first real smile Amelia had seen from her in months. Over the following weeks, Ethan visited every day. He brought medical equipment, strange devices he had built himself, and a quiet confidence that slowly filled the house. He started gently, stretching Lila's legs, massaging her muscles, and talking to her about everything except her pain. He told her stories of the soldiers he'd saved, the deserts he'd crossed, and the nights he'd prayed for a miracle. "Pain is a language," he told her one afternoon. "Your body is trying to speak. We just have to listen and teach it new words." Lila giggled. "Like teaching my legs to say hello again." "Exactly," he said with a grin. Amelia watched from the doorway, arms crossed but eyes soft. She had never seen her daughter so alive, so determined. As the days turned into weeks, something remarkable began to happen. Lila's legs twitched. The first time, she screamed, not from pain, but from shock. "Did you see that?" she shouted, looking at her mother. It moved. Amelia rushed forward, tears streaming down her face. Ethan only smiled and whispered, "Told you forever doesn't mean impossible." One evening, after Lila had gone to bed, Amelia poured 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Ethan. "You've done more for her in a month than anyone else in 2 years, she said quietly. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan looked into the cup, his reflection distorted in the dark surface. "Because once, someone saved my kid too." Amelia frowned. "Your child?" He nodded slowly. "My son, Noah. He was 6 when a drunk driver hit us. I lost my leg saving him." The doctors said he'd never walk again either. But I refused to accept that. Amelia's eyes widened as she glanced at his leg, realizing for the first time that the limp she'd noticed wasn't fatigue, but a prosthetic. He walks now, Ethan continued. Plays baseball, climbs trees, gets into trouble like any boy his age. I promised myself that if I ever met another kid like him, I'd do whatever it took. Amelia swallowed hard, her heart pounding. You're a good man, Ethan. He looked up, meeting her gaze. Just a dad who knows what it feels like to pray for a miracle. Weeks turned to months. Lila's progress was slow but steady. Every milestone, every tiny movement, was a victory. First, she could stand with support. Then she took one trembling step. Then another. The day she took 3 steps alone, Amelia collapsed into tears, hugging her daughter tightly. Ethan stood quietly in the corner, smiling through his own tears. Lila turned to him and whispered, I told you my legs would say hello. But not everyone was happy about it. Amelia's ex-husband, Richard, returned after months of silence. A powerful attorney with more ego than compassion, he had filed for full custody, claiming Amelia's emotional instability made her unfit. When he saw Lila walking, he accused Amelia of lying to gain sympathy in court. She's pretending for attention, he sneered. You're all playing games. Ethan stepped forward. Watch your tone. Richard scoffed. And who are you? Her new boyfriend. Some washed-up soldier trying to play hero. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. He simply put a hand on Lila's shoulder and guided her away. Amelia glared at Richard. If you can't see the miracle happening in front of you, you don't deserve to call yourself her father. The custody hearing was scheduled again 2 weeks later. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Ethan stood quietly at the back, Lila beside him, holding his hand. Amelia sat before the judge's bench, trying to stay composed. Richard's lawyer spoke first, painting Amelia as unstable and emotionally reckless. When it was her turn to speak, Amelia's voice shook but her resolve didn't. Then the judge called Ethan forward. He walked slowly to the stand, every step steady, his prosthetic leg clicking softly against the floor. Mr. Cole, the judge said, you claim to have assisted in Lila Hayes' recovery. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am, he said. The opposing lawyer sneered. Are you a licensed physician? No, sir. I'm a veteran medic. I don't hold a civilian license, but I hold something better, experience and results. The lawyer chuckled mockingly. So you're saying you, a single father with no medical degree, cured a condition that doctors called permanent? Ethan's eyes glinted with calm fire. I didn't cure her. I helped her believe again. The body follows where the heart leads. The courtroom murmured. Then the judge turned, Amelia's mentor, a stern woman with decades on the bench, and asked, Mr. Cole, if you're telling the truth, can the girl demonstrate this progress herself? Ethan looked at Lila and nodded gently. Go on, kiddo. Lila wheeled herself forward, her small hands trembling. She looked at her mother, then at Ethan. Slowly, she stood. The braces on her legs clicked softly, but she didn't fall. She took one step, then another. Then, with tears streaming down her face, she walked, not perfectly, not easily, but freely. The entire courtroom gasped. The judge's gavel slipped from her hand and clattered against the desk. Richard turned pale, speechless. And Ethan, standing behind her, whispered, told you she could. Amelia's hand flew to her mouth. She looked between Ethan and the judge, then realized, the older judge's eyes were filled with tears. Mr. Cole, the judge whispered, what did you say your name was? Ethan Cole, ma'am. She froze, her face draining of color. You're the medic from Fallujah, the one who saved my son years ago. The room went silent again. Amelia turned to her in shock. What? The judge nodded, her voice trembling. My son was in an explosion overseas. A medic dragged him from the wreckage. He told me his name was Ethan Cole. Ethan bowed his head slightly. That's right. He didn't deserve to die out there. Tears streamed down the judge's face. He told me about you before he passed. He said you were more than a soldier, you were a man who believed in healing. The courtroom was in stunned silence. Even Richard sat down, defeated. The judge took a deep breath, wiping her eyes. Case dismissed. Custody remains with Judge Hayes. And Mr. Cole, she paused, smiling faintly through tears. Thank you, for saving another life. After the hearing, Amelia found Ethan standing by his truck again, watching the sunset. She walked up quietly, her heart full of emotions she couldn't name. "You saved her," she whispered. He smiled. "She saved herself. I just reminded her how strong she is." Amelia's eyes softened. "And what about you, Ethan? When was the last time you let someone save you?" He chuckled softly. "Maybe that's starting now." Lila ran toward them, her legs wobbly but determined. She wrapped her arms around Ethan's waist. "Don't go," she said. "We still have walking lessons tomorrow." He knelt down, smiling through tears. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Amelia watched them, the soldier who refused to give up, the child who refused to stop believing, and the mother who had found hope again. For the first time in years, she felt peace. The world didn't give her a miracle. It sent her a man who made one.